Inspiring moment revealed, Mafia boss surprises single mom counting change with $500 generosity. Maria pored over the loose change scattered across the counter, part of her morning ritual at Joe's diner. The grimy linoleum tiles beneath her tired feet felt like they might suddenly crumble under her weight, but she couldn't afford to dwell on that. She had just enough for her children to split a greasy breakfast burrito. The kids' laughter rang in her ears like echoes of hope, yet it clashed with the reality of their living conditions, a rundown rental with rusting pipes and peeling paint. Each squeeze of the change brought her a little closer to the edge of despair, a constant reminder that dreams, no matter how small, seemed hopelessly out of reach. Each penny felt like another judgment cast on her, an unspoken disapproval from the townsfolk who trickled into the diner. Their gleaming cars parked outside, contrasting sharply with the ragged dereliction of her life. She had 2 jobs, juggling late shifts at the diner and cleaning offices, but it still wasn't enough. The weight of financial strain threatened to crush her when she was alone with her thoughts. Would they ever escape the vicious cycle? Every day, she slipped into the role of the strong single mother, but inside, her heart was often heavy with shame and fear. On that rainy afternoon, as the door burst open, dripping with the day's despair, Maria tensed. Frankie, the King, Malone sauntered in, known for his ill repute and dealings that surged in the shadows of the town. A wide-eyed silence fell over the diner. She gripped the rag tighter, fighting the anxiety that spiked her pulse. Rumors painted him as a monster, even that disheveled exterior couldn't hide the danger he embodied. But instead of the aggressive stride she had anticipated, he slid onto a stool at the counter, his eyes riveted on her. It was curious. Unsettling. Frankie spoke first, his voice low but inviting. "What's with the coins? You saving up for something?" Maria hesitated, her mind racing through the moral maze of her situation, torn between the instinct to protect herself and her children and the yearning to connect with someone beyond the confines of her gray existence. "I'm just trying to feed my kids," she confessed, the words escaping before she could swallow them back. There was a flicker in Frankie's eyes, a mix of understanding and surprise that she had not expected. She found herself recounting late nights and sacrifice, the fatigue painted on her features only softened by the gleam of hope in her eyes as she spoke of her children. Frankie nodded, an inexplicable softness emerging, causing a dissonance in her heart. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Days passed, and whispers of Frankie's kindness made their way through the community, igniting debate. The unsettling feeling that washed over Maria as he surprised her with a $500 cash gift churned her stomach. It was a lifeline, but at what cost? Acceptance felt like complicity in shadows she wished to keep at bay. The stares of the townsfolk weighed heavily, their judgment slashing at her resolve. Moments of undeniable anguish twisted within her as she grappled with contradictory emotions. Should she accept the help of a man whose past threatened to label her as something she was not? The pressure intensified, echoing in her thoughts. Now standing at a crossroads, Maria prepared to confront the faces that had become a backdrop to her struggle, ready to defend her decisions even as doubt dripped into her veins. She felt torn between the silver lining of Frankie's unexpected generosity and the looming judgment of her neighbors, struggling to retain her values in a world that seemed determined to strip them away. Would her choice reinforce her dignity or push her into deeper isolation? The tension crackled, a storm brewing inside her, a battle of compassion colliding with fear, waiting to explode into the world outside. The morning after receiving the unexpected cash, Maria stood before the bathroom mirror, her expression a blend of determination and trepidation. The faint gray light filtering through the small window illuminated the shadows beneath her eyes, evidence of sleepless nights spent wrestling with her conscience. Each passing minute felt like a countdown, a pressure cooker ready to burst. She had replayed the encounter with Frankie 1,000 times in her mind, oscillating between gratitude and alarm. Deciding to confront her doubts, Maria gathered her strength and dressed for the day. She opted for a faded blue blouse that reminded her of her mother. It had seen better days but fit snugly enough to make her feel somewhat polished. She hesitated briefly before leaving the house, glancing back at the faded walls filled with memories of struggle. With her children still asleep, she slipped out, determined to carve out a path of her own. As she made her way to the diner, the usual morning rush had begun. Patrons filled the booths, their laughter mingling with the clinking of silverware, a stark contrast to the turmoil roiling inside her. She dropped her bag behind the counter and collected herself. No longer counting coins, she was now tasked with counting consequences. Maria's resolve wavered when she felt the weight of eyes on her. It was an unspoken truth that spread like wildfire. Frankie's generosity was the talk of the diner. She felt the judgmental whispers stab at her pride as she cleared tables and refilled coffee cups. It wasn't just the money, it was the looming fear of being ensnared in a web she had fervently avoided all her life. Would they see her as a victim or as a player in a dangerous game? "Hey, Maria," a voice rang out, breaking her reverie. It was Sarah, her longtime friend, and, at times, her only ally in this community. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Caught off guard, Maria nearly masked her anxiety with a smile. "Just tired, I guess," she said, forcing the words out. The coffee she sipped did little to warm the chill that crept through her. That $500 could change everything: a new washing machine, groceries without compromise, or the first month of rent paid in advance. Yet, the burden it carried felt heavier than the grip of despair. "Listen," Sarah leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You need to be careful with that Frankie guy. People are talking, and it won't end well if you keep accepting his help." Tension coiled tighter within Maria as Sarah's words drummed in her mind. Was accepting financial aid from someone like Frankie truly worth the risk? Could she stand strong against the backlash that would surely follow if she did? Yet, amidst the suffocating fears, a flicker of another thought ignited within her. What if she flipped the narrative? She could leverage that money to fuel a different kind of future, a chance to reclaim control over her life rather than remain a pawn in a cycle of desperation. In that moment, Maria resolved to visit the local small business association. It was a long shot, even more so considering her circumstances, but it could guide her toward a safe way to channel her newfound resources. She needed to shift from mere survival to empowerment. The thought of establishing her own source of income sent adrenaline coursing through her. Maybe, just maybe, she could become something more than the shadows lingering in the eyes of the men and women around her. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows that enveloped the diner, Maria felt an unfamiliar determination taking root. She clenched her fists, ready for what lay ahead, and steeled herself against the voices of doubt. Little did she know, that decision would not only redefine her path but also draw her deeper into the world Frankie inhabited, where loyalties were stringently tested, and the line between right and wrong blurred perilously. The pivotal moment was drawing closer, and Maria was on the brink of something she hadn't yet grasped. But the moment she stepped into that association, the realities of her choices would unfold in ways she never anticipated. Would she find the strength to carve out her own destiny, or would the paths laid before her lead her further into the darkness? The question lingered in the air like a dare, challenging her to take that first courageous step. With a deliberate breath, Maria stepped inside the small business association, her heart pounding against her ribcage like a trapped bird. The room was alive with the buzzing chatter of entrepreneurs, their conversations layered over the scent of freshly brewed coffee. Tables adorned with flyers and promotional material sprawled across the room, beckoning participants to gather inspiration and resources. As she glanced around, Maria's mind danced with anticipation and anxiety. This was her first significant step toward a different life, a life that perhaps could break the cyclical patterns of dependency that had shackled her for far too long. She slipped her hands into her pockets, feeling the crumpled bills, contemplating how best to use Frankie's money. Excuse me, can I help you? A soft voice pulled her attention. Maria turned to see a woman in glasses, her warm smile breezy yet professional. I'm Diane, the director here. Hi, I'm Maria. I was hoping to learn about starting a small business, she replied, her tone a fragile mix of uncertainty and hope. Speaking those words out loud felt almost revolutionary. Diane's eyes lit up. That's fantastic. We have resources available for aspiring entrepreneurs, funding programs, workshops, and mentorship options. Maria nodded, her insides fluttering with possibility. This could be her turning point, an opportunity to rise from the ashes of stagnation. But then doubts crept back in. Are there classes for beginners? I don't know anyone in this community. With a reassuring nod, Diane continued, absolutely. We have programs designed exactly for people in your situation. Everyone starts somewhere, you know. The comforting words wrapped around Maria, anchoring her as she faced the reality of her situation. In an instant, the weight she had carried for so long felt less burdensome, yet still present. She was learning to understand that vulnerability could coexist with strength. Diane motioned for Maria to follow and led her to a table cluttered with flyers and pamphlets. This one is about our entrepreneurship course. Many participants are just like you, single parents or those looking to make significant life changes. As Maria scanned the material, her mind whirled with the endless possibilities. Ideas sparked: baking, crafts, selling home goods. Yet self-doubt interjected, questioning if she had what it took. What if it's too hard? What if I fail? Diane stood in silence for a moment, then said, but what if you succeed? What if this becomes something greater than you've ever imagined? The journey often holds challenges, but it's also where we find our strength, sometimes even unexpected ones. In that moment, her fears appeared less like insurmountable walls and more like hurdles she could choose to jump over. Maria felt the stirrings of ambition, flaring like embers dancing toward a flame. Can I sign up for the course? She blurted, almost surprised by her own decisive tone. Diane's smile widened, and she handed Maria a clipboard. Absolutely. Let us get you started. With each pen stroke against paper, Maria felt the shackles of her indecision loosen. The commitment she was making redefined her narrative, not merely as a woman receiving charity but as an architect of her future. Once the paperwork was completed, Diane led Maria back to the main room teeming with hopeful faces. You'll do great things, just remember to lean on your community for support. As Maria surveyed the room filled with aspiring business owners, an unsettling thought surfaced: how would she reconcile her past choices with this bold new venture? A reminder of Frankie lingered like a shadow, beckoning her to consider his influence and the potential entanglements she had skirted. Yet, she could not dwell on fear. Focus forward, she whispered to herself, trying to silence the echo of doubt. The risk of stepping into Frankie's world was no longer her primary concern. Instead, she felt the urgent push towards what lay ahead: the chance to build a life based on her own terms, not Frankie's, not the diner's, but entirely her own. As she left the association with her head held high, resolve bubbling inside her, a startling realization settled in: the choice to reclaim her agency birthed a confidence that challenged even her own self-perception. Yet, the question hung heavily in the air: could she truly navigate this new path without the shadows of her past resurfacing? With every step away from the association, that question ignited a fire, one that demanded an answer and threatened to draw her back into the life she had fought so hard to escape. The days faded into a blur of excitement and anxiety as Maria eagerly awaited the start of her entrepreneurship course. Just like the cookies she once baked for extra money, she felt herself being molded shape by shape, idea by idea, into something that could finally stand on its own. Each evening, she scoured drive-through boards and online marketplaces, dissecting what others used as stepping stones for success. It wasn't just about the money, it was about moments of clarity when she envisioned herself thriving. On the day of the first class, Maria woke earlier than usual, nerves fluttering throughout her body. She dressed in a simple outfit, feeling uncharacteristically self-aware and, for the first time in forever, somewhat proud. She took a moment to breathe deeply, quieting the whirlwind of thoughts threatening to overwhelm her. As she entered the bustling learning space filled with new faces, the small, nervous laughter of fellow participants drifted through the air, offering a sense of camaraderie that calmed her racing mind. Among them, she spotted a woman whose overzealous energy radiated confidence, the kind that made Maria both intrigued and slightly envious. "Hi there. I'm Jenna," the woman exclaimed, extending her hand. "You nervous too? It's all a part of the adventure, right?" "Yeah, I'm Maria," she replied, shaking Jenna's hand firmly. Once the class began, Maria felt her attention shift from overwhelming anxiety to an eagerness that propulsively propelled her forward. The instructor, an experienced businesswoman named Clara, spoke with conviction about the entrepreneurial journey. The notion that failure was simply a step toward success resonated in Maria's mind. Clara's insight sparked something deep within her, a whisper that echoed with hope against the thunderous noise of doubt. As they moved through the curriculum, tasks became more demanding, pushing Maria to confront her insecurities head-on. Group discussions forced her to articulate ideas she had barely formed. What if her concepts didn't land? What if she misinterpreted advice, or worse, looked foolish in front of her peers? But with every class, something shifted. Ideas flowed more freely, and Maria found herself embracing the discomfort of vulnerability. It wasn't about perfection but progress. She had no intention of regressing into the patterns she desperately sought to escape. One afternoon, they tackled marketing strategies, a topic Maria had initially dreaded. But by the time the discussion wrapped, a feeling of exhilaration filled her. She realized she was redefining what it meant to market herself, not just her future business but her entire identity. She scribbled ideas into her notebook, her mind abuzz with possibilities. Later that week, Maria found herself at the diner, her old haunt, facing Frankie. The familiar place suddenly felt foreign, more like a reminder of her past as opposed to home. As she wiped down the counter, the worn-out routine tugged at her. "Hey, Maria. Still working on those big dreams of yours?" he asked, a playful smirk lurking in his voice as he leaned against the wall. The question hung in the air, quelling the confidence she had built all week. Her heart raced, conflicting emotions swirling as she leaned into the counter. "I'm trying to," she said, her quiet admission belying her fierce determination. The audacity of facing Frankie sent rivulets of adrenaline coursing through her veins, leaving her feeling both empowered and anxious. How much had she truly moved away from the person she had been? Just as she was about to regain her composure, something cracked within her. "I'm taking a course. It's about starting my own business, and I'm really excited about it." His laughter rolled out, weighing heavily on her. "Really? You think you can do it?" Every instinct screamed to flee. She was momentarily rooted in fear, but Maria rebuffed it, holding her ground. "I will. I'm not waiting for anyone to validate my ambitions this time." As his laughter faded and a smirk turned into something uncertain, she sensed a shift. This was her moment of self-affirmation, a decision to reshape the future she envisioned. The course continued to blossom her creativity, but still a nagging question loomed: how would Frankie react if her dreams took flight? That tension led her to a quiet resolve: she had to prove herself, not for him but for who she was becoming. Each day would take her closer. Yet, the apprehension remained: was she prepared to defend her newfound self against those still tied to her old life? Driven by that uncertainty, she stepped back into the world of fragile hope and brutal honesty, no longer the person shackled by past shadows, but a woman ready to confront every challenge that came her way. The upcoming challenges promised no easy path, they were the gritty hallmarks of genuine transformation. As she prepared to face her next class, an unsettling thought prickled her mind: could the very people from her past create roadblocks in her quest for future success? The days of the entrepreneurship course turned into a rigorous training ground for Maria, each class a fresh challenge beckoning her to break through the walls she had carefully constructed around her self-worth. The vibrant discussions with classmates, earlier intimidating, became a heartbeat in her evolving narrative. Every session unveiled another layer of her ambition, the concepts of branding and business models triggering an unrelenting hunger for knowledge. Yet alongside the rush of ideas, doubt still crept in shadows of her past self, whispering half-hearted reassurances. Who did she think she was? Just another dreamer? Unable to shake off those voices completely, Maria forged ahead, determined to show her worth to herself, if not to anyone else. In a particularly lively session, they were assigned to create an elevator pitch for their business ideas. Clara emphasized the importance of clarity and confidence in communication. In the past, Maria had shrunk from speaking in public, her voice often muffled by the weight of insecurity. But this time, she prepared diligently, writing and rewriting her pitch. On the designated day, Maria found herself in a surprisingly tight circle of peers, the buzz of their nerves almost palpable. As her turn approached, her heart thundered in her chest, but a defiant spark ignited within her. This wasn't about just saying words, it was about embodying a vision. Stepping forward, she gripped the sides of the podium, grounding herself in the moment. "Hi, I'm Maria, and I offer a subscription box of homemade baking kits that incorporate healthy ingredients. My goal is to provide families with the opportunity to create delicious treats together while fostering healthy eating habits," she stated, her voice steady, each word echoing with authenticity. She noticed heads nodding, eyes lighting up like fireflies drawn to her enthusiasm. With each sentence, she felt the transformation within, no longer a timid woman seeking approval, but a determined entrepreneur owning her narrative. The applause that followed wasn't merely about her pitch, it was a resonance of her burgeoning identity. Maria stepped back into her seat, a sigh of relief mingling with triumph. The sense of belonging in that moment was heady and intoxicating. Yet the victory came with a counterpoint. After class, she overheard a couple of classmates discussing their long-standing side businesses. Their casual banter conjured memories of the diner, of Frankie's raised eyebrows and smirking disbelief. The thought of returning to that environment, where her aspirations collided with his condescension, steadied her resolve. She was propelled forward not by others' perceptions but by her own expectations. Navigating the next few classes became an exercise in balancing this newfound confidence with the lurking doubt. Each lesson further incited her curiosity, and Clara's mentorship felt like a lifeline. With each exercise, Maria wrestled with herself, embracing the discomfort of learning and growing. The course culminated in an intense group project, a pitch to potential investors that demanded collaboration among diverse temperaments. Maria hesitated, recalling her history of struggling to voice opinions in groups. But this project was different, she was committed to taking the lead. As she gathered her group's ideas, she fervently encouraged dialogue, ensuring every voice felt valid, an intentional choice to share power, not to dominate it. Her perspective was valid, a deep-seated realization spurred by her evolving identity. Clara's approving nods during the final pitch buoyed her confidence, but tensions flared when they received feedback. Some suggestions felt dismissive, igniting an internal struggle. Maria longed to challenge her critics, but the thought of rejection gnawed at her. Confrontation simmered within her. Could she defend her vision without sacrificing her integrity? As they prepared for the next round of revisions, Maria sensed that beyond the weight of their assignments lay heavier stakes: her compatibility with her own aspirations and the world's often conflicting expectations. And as Maria forged ahead, the looming specter of her past whispered as persuasive reminders: what if she faltered? What if she stumbled back into the shadows of self-doubt? Could she truly rise above the voices that questioned her? Her pulse quickened. The next class was coming fast, and with it, the opportunity to solidify her commitment to not only dreaming but doing. Would she confront the nagging skepticism of her past, or redefine her future in the process? The time had come to face not only those doubts but the very person she had been too afraid to abandon. The dimly lit classroom buzzed with a mixture of excitement and anxiety as the students prepared for their next assignment. Maria sat at her desk, tracing the outline of her notes with a fingertip, a small ritual of grounding before diving into the unknown. Her recent success had shaken loose some of the cobwebs of doubt, but there remained a stubborn sense of vulnerability lurking just beneath the surface. On the agenda today was a live role-play simulation of investor meetings, a challenge that simultaneously thrilled and terrified her. Clara had explained that this exercise would put them in real, high-stakes scenarios. Each student would have to field questions from their peers acting as investors, defending their ideas under pressure. It was a crucible designed to burn away the dross of fear and hesitation, leaving only the most resolute entrepreneur behind. As Maria listened to her classmates eagerly volunteer, dread began to creep in. Could she manage such scrutiny? Yet a more assertive part of her began to simmer. She had stepped into the limelight with her pitch, after all. This was an opportunity to prove to herself that her newfound confidence was not a fleeting illusion. When her turn came, Maria stood, shoulders back and chin lifted, betrayal and courage warring within her. "I'm here to ask for investment in my subscription baking box." The words rolled off her tongue, the prepared lines feeling surreal. The investors, her classmates, bombarded her with inquiries. Questions ranged from pricing to marketing strategies, probing holes in her business plan. Maria experienced a wave of disorientation as she struggled to articulate her responses, snatching mental clarity from the swirling emotions. One question pierced deeper than expected: what makes your product unique? The silence that followed was a chasm ready to envelop her. For a fleeting moment, the image of Frankie's skeptical gaze flashed before her. But then, she remembered her vision, the essence of community and connection her kits promised. "Families want more than just food, they seek experiences," she responded, allowing a spark of passion to find its way into her voice. "My kits are not just about baking, they're about creating memories together, encouraging healthier choices, and sparking joy in everyday life." The room buzzed with renewed energy, and Maria could feel a shift more than her response. It was the conviction behind it that resonated. The nods of her peers as she spoke made her feel anchored, like a weight had lifted off her shoulders. This was empowerment she hadn't anticipated, and she relished every moment it unfurled within her. When the simulation concluded, Clara gathered everyone's attention to discuss more than just pitches and business plans. Today was about more than convincing others, it was about owning your journey, Clara said, scanning the room. Investors don't only look at numbers, they want to feel your passion. Yet as the applause died down, Maria fought an internal battle. Clara's words were a call to arms, yet the doubts clawed back, gnawing on her triumph. Did the applause signify genuine approval or mere politeness? Would they take her seriously in the real world? As her classmates celebrated their successes, Maria felt a twinge of isolation. A spiral of questions swirled in her mind. What if she wasn't enough? What if her vision was clouded by inexperience and naivete? Bursting with contradiction, she felt torn between the encouragement she had received and the lurking despair that whispered she was a fool for dreaming. Desperation spurred movement. With determination coursing through her veins, she sought out Clara after the group wrap-up. The mentor radiated warmth, but Maria's thoughts raced. This was her chance for clarity amidst the storm of self-doubt. "Can we talk? I still feel inadequate about the feedback," she blurted, her voice steadier than she felt. Clara's brow furrowed slightly, a sign to Maria that her worries were not unlike others faced. "Let us navigate those feelings. Understanding can only emerge through discomfort." Clara's encouragement hung heavy in the air, urging Maria to lean into the uneasiness. As they spoke, Maria faced her demons head-on, dismantling the spirals that threatened to overtake her standpoint. Would she embrace her journey, even if it felt shaky? With clarity came courage, an urge to not only shine in her pitches but to challenge the concept of her own potential. In that moment, an unexpected realization dawned over her, a commitment to become not only an entrepreneur but an advocate for growth. Each confrontation with herself, each moment of doubt, was part of her evolving narrative, an entwined path of professional and personal development. But as they wrapped up their conversation, Clara's parting remark lingered. "Every journey has its shadow self, the part that pushes back against our growth. You must decide how to integrate it. Maria left the classroom brimming with newfound resolve, yet haunted by Clara's words. If this journey was intertwined with her shadows, what else lurked within, waiting to be unearthed? Each step forward would demand she confront not just her fears but every facet of her identity. The next challenge loomed, promising more than just bumpy roads ahead. Tangled reflections of her past awaited exploration. What truths would emerge as she continued her expedition into entrepreneurship, and could she bear to face not just the successes, but also the remnants of her fears? The following week, Maria found herself perched on the edge of her worn office chair, her fingers tapping nervously against the polished surface of her desk. Clara had suggested embracing the discomfort, but facing the lingering shadows of her self-doubt felt less like embracing and more like diving into icy waters. Each morning, as she mulled over her strategies, she felt the weight of expectations pressing down, not just from those around her, but from within her own ambitions. With each passing day, Maria reviewed her business model, striving for clarity and detail. No longer merely a baking box, she envisioned a celebration of love and connection through culinary creativity, yet her confidence hesitated. Education felt paramount now, understanding market dynamics, competitor advantages, and the nuances of consumer behavior. This was no longer just about baking, it was about making a meaningful entry into a crowded arena. Today marked a pivotal point, her first workshop, intended to unveil her vision, showcase her product, and gather pivotal feedback. She had sent invitations, stirring a cocktail of anticipation and dread. Would anyone show? What if they did, only to tear her ideas apart? An hour before the doors opened, Maria rehearsed her presentation. She paced around her kitchen, the scent of freshly baked bread wafting through the air. Standing before the mirror, she practiced both her elevator pitch and the nuances of her product offering. Each word felt like a bridge connecting her dreams to her audience. Benji, her golden retriever, watched silently from the doorway, seems to sense her turmoil. "You're my good luck charm," she whispered, granting him a reassuring pat that belied her unease. As guests began to arrive, Maria's heart raced. In walked Clara, her presence grounding. "Ready to show them who you are?" she asked, giving Maria a knowing smile. The familiar comfort of that support nudged her resolve a little stronger. Maria welcomed her guests, a mix of friends, acquaintances, and a few strangers that had RSVP'd from community boards. They settled in with coffee and snacks while Maria presented her concept, each slide revealing a piece of her heart. Yet as she advanced through the slides, the question floated in the air again: what made her product unique? Uncertainty wove a delicate layer over her confidence, yet she pressed on. "This isn't just about baking. It's an experience, a way for families to reconnect through hands-on creativity and healthier choices," she declared, her earlier conviction stirring beneath the surface. Then came the questions, insistent, sometimes challenging, but with them flowed fresh perspectives. One man raised a hand. "How do you plan to reach your target market?" In answering, Maria's voice steadied, the clarity of her vision blooming with each word. "Social media will be a key driver, aimed at community engagement, showcasing the baking process as both an art and a method to build bonds. Each kit will allow for social sharing of experiences." The applause that followed imbued her with unexpected energy. But after the workshop, as conversations faded and the last guest departed, a familiar shadow slinked back into her thoughts. What if, despite the enthusiasm, her vision remained tethered to naivete? She sought Clara again, finding her in a quiet corner of the room. It felt good, but... Maria hesitated, the shadow looming over her. What if it's not enough? Clara took a moment, her gaze steady and insightful. "Answer this: are you committed to learning from your mistakes and adapting?" It hit Maria like a revelation. The discomfort wasn't a dismissal of her abilities, it was a critical ingredient in her growth recipe. "Yes," Maria replied with newfound conviction. "Well then," Clara's eyes sparkled, "keep acknowledging that discomfort. It's a part of your process, your journey isn't about perfection, it's about evolution." Leaving the workshop, Maria felt an exhilaration she hadn't expected. But beneath that elation lay the dark, haunting query: what adjustments would her journey truly demand of her? Each step deeper into entrepreneurship revealed more shadows. Could she embrace them all? As she walked home, determination igniting her footsteps, she began to visualize the next stage of her business. But as her mind swirled with plans, another thought slipped in: would confronting her weaknesses lead to a revelation, a greater understanding of what truly lay ahead? The next challenge awaited, turning her growth into an unfurling tale ready to be written. Would she have the courage to uncover more? In the days that followed the workshop, Maria immersed herself in the chaos of feedback, sifting through a blend of encouragement and constructive criticism. Each comment felt like an enigmatic puzzle piece, some fitting seamlessly into her vision while others left her stalled, unsure of how to adapt. The echoes of the applause still rang sweetly in her ears, but the haunting question of what's next loomed heavier than ever. 2 weeks later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm rays through her kitchen window, Maria decided it was time to confront the uncomfortable path that lay before her. She gathered her notes and created a new mind map that splattered ideas across the page. However, the challenge became apparent almost immediately. She struggled to define her target audience with precision. Families? Young professionals? Each pencil stroke felt like an infinite loop back to the core of her fears, spiraling into self-doubt. Focus on the why, she whispered to herself, recalling Clara's advice. Why was she doing this? The answer washed over her: she wanted to create an environment where baking transformed into cherished moments. Nurturing this instinct, she decided to focus on families, particularly those who sought creativity amidst the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Maria needed to test this newfound direction, but she understood that merely theorizing wouldn't suffice. She committed to conducting interviews with potential customers. Each conversation felt daunting, resistance swelled within her, but she leaned into it, embracing the discomfort she had once tried to avoid. The first interview was scheduled with a neighbor, Sarah, whose children adored baking. On the day of the interview, Maria felt a storm of emotions swirling within her. As she brewed her coffee and laid out baked goods as refreshments, she strived to silence the voice that told her she might fail to extract useful insights. Sarah rang the doorbell, and Maria welcomed her with a bright smile, her demeanor a stark contrast to her internal turmoil. "Thanks for coming. I appreciate you taking the time," Maria said, easing into her role as the inquisitor. As they chatted, Maria observed how Sarah lit up while sharing her family's baking experiences. Maria's questions became sharper, diving deeper into what truly mattered to families. With each answer, her confidence burgeoned, and she began to feel the contours of her vision sharpening. The conversation ended with Sarah expressing excitement about a future baking night, something Maria could tailor into her offerings. Elation surged through her as she scribbled notes, detailing what resonated with her neighbor. Later that evening, as Maria reviewed her insights, her heart raced in recognition. Sarah's feedback had ignited a strategic breakthrough. She could incorporate not just recipes but themed baking experiences, allowing families to create, connect, and celebrate together. This clarity brought a rush of motivation. She felt the first flickers of confidence illuminating her pathway. However, alongside this burgeoning excitement was a creeping sense of vulnerability. Sharing her refined ideas felt daunting. What if they were still too simplistic? What if the businesses she admired already dominated what she envisioned? But a new conviction wrapped around her. This was her unique voice, drawn from her own experiences and aspirations. As she drafted a new proposal for a potential community partner, Maria grappled with her emotional landscape. Could these new concepts withstand scrutiny? Would she have the courage to face rejection again if it came? The thrill of possibility lingered, but the shadows of anxiety flickered persistently, urging her to confront not just her ideas but her fears. With renewed vigor, Maria pressed on, setting a goal to formalize a prototype of her product experience. The date loomed ahead, and preparation became her stepping stone to execution. But with every step forward, a nagging thought began to unfurl: what might she lose in pursuit of this dream? As her ambition gathered pace, would clarity come at the cost of her connections? The stakes were rising, and with them, so was her desire to discover her true limits. The following week promised a pivotal pitch meeting with a local artisan market. Would this be the moment she broke through, or merely another arena of judgment? In that charged anticipation, Maria braced for the test that would push her evolution further, stumbling closer to the essence of who she was meant to become. As the sun rose on the day of her pitch, Maria stood in front of her mirror, scrutinizing the reflection that gazed back at her. This was not just another day, it was a pivotal moment that could alter the trajectory of her budding career. The serene white walls of her kitchen contrasted sharply with the turmoil in her heart. What if she faltered? What if her vision didn't resonate? She rehearsed her presentation silently, tightening the notes held in her trembling hands. The structure she had meticulously crafted brought a sense of organization, yet each point felt like an exposed nerve ending, sensitive and raw. With every rehearsed phrase, doubt whispered at the back of her mind, chipping away at her resolve. As she arrived at the local artisan market, the vibrant sights and sounds enveloped her. Stalls bursting with colorful goods and cheerful chatter surrounded her, a stark reminder of how alive and competitive this environment was. Maria's heart raced as she spotted the market manager, a figure of authority who would deliver her future in a matter of minutes. Did she truly belong among this bustling sea of creativity and innovation? She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the purpose that drove her. This market could be the launch pad for what she envisioned: an experience for families, a way to carve out joyful moments through baking. She entered the meeting room, where the smell of fresh bread lingered, a reminder of the comfort she hoped to replicate for her potential customers. As she started presenting, Maria focused on her passion. Words flowed as she described her concept: themed baking nights, with each theme designed to help families bond, learn, and create lasting memories together. She watched the market manager's expression shift, curiosity igniting in their eyes as she painted vivid pictures of joyful gatherings around a kitchen table. Yet, halfway through, a flicker of concern flashed across their face, shattering her momentum. "It sounds lovely, Maria, but it feels very familiar. How will you differentiate from other baking experiences out there?" Their challenge pierced through her confidence, intensifying the internal battleground she faced. She paused, feeling the weight of her vulnerability, a stark contrast to the confidence she had built. The nagging question of whether to reveal her true feelings gripped her heart. Instead of retreating behind safe answers, she decided to confront her reality. "You're right. I've noticed the familiar patterns in the industry. But what I bring is a personal touch, a story behind each recipe, one that resonates with my own family experiences. I want to create an emotional connection." Maria could see the manager's curiosity deepening as she touched on the personal aspects of her vision. Using her own memories of baking with her mother, she shared how those moments instilled not just skills in the kitchen but lifelong bonds. The more she spoke, the more raw honesty infused her words. She wasn't just presenting a product, she was offering a holistic experience, one built on genuine connections in a world that often prioritized speed over meaning. When she exited the meeting, adrenaline coursing through her, Maria felt a flicker of hope within the haze of uncertainty. She had not only defended her vision but had also connected it to her heartfelt journey. Yet self-doubt lingered. Would this authenticity be enough to capture not just attention but commitment? Days passed, and while the response from the market manager was looming, Maria faced a new fear, the pang of anticipation mixed with trepidation of what lay ahead. She pondered the possibilities. If she succeeded, this could alter everything she envisioned for her future. But what if rejection awaited her? The clarity of her vision felt like a burning ember, yet the shadows of self-doubt loomed larger. As she prepared for the possible outcomes, Maria realized she had a decision to make. Would she lean into her vulnerability and embrace whatever lay ahead, or would she retreat to the safety of the familiar, risking the opportunity to truly shine? With the weight of this choice pressing upon her, she took a deep breath. In that moment of introspection, she understood that true growth awaited her, yet so did the specter of failure, a gripping paradox. What awaited her next? Would she embrace the fire of potential, or back down in the face of fear? The anticipation of the market's response would confront her as a revealing test of her commitment to her journey. The awaited day finally dawned, the sun breaking through the clouds with an intensity that mirrored Maria's racing heart. She had spent days agonizing over the pitch, rehearsing every nuance, every possible angle of response. Now, the phone call had arrived, an announcement wrapped in friendly politeness yet nagging uncertainty. The local artisan market was ready to reveal their decision. As she stood with the phone pressed to her ear, Maria felt the tremor of her thoughts swirling into a cyclone of hope and dread. The market manager's voice came through, steady and clear. "Maria, we were impressed by your concept." Her breath hitched, suspended in a balance between anticipation and fear. "We'd like to offer you a stall at our upcoming event. Your unique approach of blending personal storytelling with baking nights is something we believe our community will truly embrace." In that instant, the floodgates opened. Relief crashed over her like waves, sweeping away the doubts that had clung like sand. Triumph surged through her veins as she expressed her gratitude, words tumbling out in a tangled mess of excitement. She had done it, confronted her fears and stepped into the arena, all while weaving in her personal narrative. Yet, as joy filled her, a shadow flickered at the edges of her mind. What would this mean for her relationship with Frankie and the people of the diner? Would they still see her as just the single mother fumbling through life? But Maria had learned to harness discomfort, transforming it into a stepping stone of strength. She remembered Clara's teachings. Her journey was not defined by others' perceptions but by her unwavering determination to fashion her own narrative. With renewed resolve, Maria immediately sprung into action, planning her booth layout, experimenting with themed boxes and promotional materials, ensuring that every detail resonated with the essence of familial connection she aimed to foster. The initial aim of simply making money had morphed into something larger, a community initiative that positioned bonds over products, connection over profit. The night before the artisan market, Maria worked tirelessly, donning an apron smeared with flour and the scent of vanilla wafting through her small kitchen like a familiar embrace. Friends had offered to help, but this was her pivotal moment. She wanted to craft every detail herself, infusing her heart into every batch of cookies and all that came with them. Those moments of baking echoed her childhood, each dough pressed reflecting her resolve. The day of the market arrived, and with a quick glance in the mirror, she straightened her blouse. The world buzzed beyond her door, a cacophony of chatter, laughter, and the scent of fresh pastries wafting through the air as she approached her stall at the market. Her heart thumped with every step, bearing the weight of expectations both from within and the wide-eyed attendees who meandered through vibrant displays, seeking treasures to fill their day. As she set up, old faces from the diner passed by, whispers flickering like moths drawn to light. They cast glances, some nodding in recognition, while others continued on with indifferent dismissiveness. But Maria focused on a greater purpose. She looked around at the families, the children, and the couples who arrived, all eager for experiences, connections that mirrored the happiness she envisioned sharing. When the market kicked off, the initial rush lashed through her stall. Maria engaged with visitors, each conversation and interaction that fueled her strength. She deftly wove her story into her sales pitch, portraying the emotional investment of each themed baking kit while inviting guests to envision their own familial stories panning out in the kitchen. Slowly but surely, customers began to sign up for her baking nights. The joy evident in their eyes lit her spirit with electric enthusiasm. The applause may have initially come in the form of monetary support, but what transcended the transaction was the laughter, the promises of bonds formed over shared memories. As the day wore on, Maria's heart felt lighter than it ever had, a stark contrast to the looming dread she had known for so long. Conversations flowed freely, her idea transforming into something alive, a dynamic, thriving part of the market that resonated with authenticity. By the end of the day, Maria stood behind her stall, a tapestry of smiles and glowing connections stretched before her. As she packed up, a familiar face approached Frankie, his expression inscrutable yet curious. Looks like you've made quite the impression, he remarked. Maria met his gaze, the lines of doubt she once felt as oppressive now turned into an embrace of resilience. Thanks for the inspiration, she replied, allowing herself a smile that felt wholly genuine. She didn't need his approval anymore. It's about building your own legacy, right? He said, a hint of admiration creeping into his demeanor. Exactly. And I'm ready to grow beyond what I've known, Maria affirmed, feeling the weight of uncertainty begin to lift like old skin sloughing off. In that moment, Maria grasped the depth of her own transformation. She had not only embraced her own narrative, but she had also paved a path that extended beyond her history, a bridge toward potential, connection, and empowerment. This was her new chapter, born out of adversity and tempered with courage, an authentic reflection of her journey that would resonate throughout the community. As she watched families gather, laughter mingling with the aroma of baked goods, she finally understood, the limits she placed on herself had been a mirage. Maria stepped fully into her identity as both a mother and a burgeoning entrepreneur, ready to both shape her future and reshape the narrative surrounding her past. This was just the beginning. Every ending always prompts a deeper exploration of who you really are. But for Maria, she had achieved a pivotal victory, a sealskinning of self that promised her a future filled with possibility and genuine connection. And in the quiet of that bustling market, she made the commitment to herself as she moved forward, to prioritize authenticity over acceptance, to allow her journey to become a celebration of growth while fully embracing the unfolding narrative of her life, forever intertwined with her children's laughter. With a renewed sense of purpose, Maria understood that dreams forged in authentic self-expression were hers alone to achieve, and she was just getting started. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and not miss future exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you to chase your dreams. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Maria's remarkable journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering conclusion. Your action helps others discover the path of personal overcoming stories.